Does the cost of your general liability insurance confuse you? How is it calculated? How did they get to the final premium number? A lot of times these pains can come out during an audit when you get a large bill that you weren't expecting. These are all relevant concerns. Stay tuned. In this video, I'm going to share with you what is your general liability premium made up of, how's it calculated, so that if you ever are in the situation, hopefully go back, look at it, and say, okay, we're either A, in a good spot, or we're in a bad spot. What's up, everyone? My name is Mike Casales. This is the Business Insurance Playbook. Our channel has one goal in mind. That is to help you become a better buyer of business insurance. And I have over 13 years of experience helping companies with insurance needs, risk management, and bonding needs. So if you like this content, do us a favor, give us a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button. All right, let's get into this. Okay, the first part of the equation that makes up your general liability is class codes, right? This is why it's so important that you are clearly explaining to your agent and the insurance company what exactly you're doing. Now, sometimes maybe there's some gray area, or maybe sometimes you're doing multiple types of operations. So it's pretty simple if you're a plumber, right, and all you do is residential plumbing. Well, that's going to be a specific class code that all underwriters would use to put you in, right? You don't need to know necessarily the class code. What you need to know, though, is that you are in the right class code. So if you have doubts about this, what I would do is ask your agent to be like, can I just see the class codes you have me in on my general liability policy? And you can take that number, Google it, and probably find out by just kind of reading the descriptions if you're in the right class code. I have seen people misclassified quite a bit. One particular area where there's maybe some confusion is if you are grading versus excavating, right? As a contractor. Sounds very similar, but very different from a GL rate standpoint. So you really got to be specific when you're talking with underwriters and your agent about what you're doing. Now, I mentioned you might have multiple class codes. So let's just say you manufacture a product that you sell separately, but you don't install, and then you do your own installation of something else over here. Well, that's two separate class codes, right? Two separate rating bases. So you need to make sure that you're just being accurate with all this. This will help you avoid a large audit on the back end. One thing to note on the class codes, again, in this scenario I just talked about, is if you're manufacturing a product that you're selling exclusively, but then you're installing something, well, the sales from the manufactured product that you sell exclusively, in this case, that rate is typically going to be a lot less expensive than the install rate, right? So this is, again, why it's so important, but it depends on the product you're manufacturing. So you can kind of see where this conversation is leading us. It's like a lot of it, there's a lot of nuance. This is why it's so important to have an agent who understands your business, and then also to make sure that they're telling the right story to the underwriter so you're properly classified. Okay, so part two of the equation, then you have your rating basis. And what I mean by this is just it could be like your exposure data, right? So what they're going to rate it off of, you multiply the class code by the rating basis, which is going to be either typically gross sales, gross payroll. It could be area or square footage if you're figuring out general liability premium for maybe an office building. It could be if you're in a unique industry. I've seen like gallons for fuel haulers, right? So there is some exceptions to this rule, but primarily speaking, we're talking sales and or payroll. One other caveat to know is that if you sub work out, there would be a separate rate sub costs. One other thing I wanted to mention to you on payroll, if you're based off of payroll, is that you should not include, if you're a contractor specifically, payroll for like office workers, right? If you are a plumber or you are an electrician. One other thing to note is that your sales is going to be based off of gross sales. There's really typically no deductions. Now, in the previous example where I talked about if you manufacture and then you also install, if you're manufacturing something and you're selling just directly without installing, well, then that would be a separate item that you would maybe then deduct the sales from, right, that you're installing. So the last piece is, what is the formula? You take the class code, that's your base rate. You multiply that by your exposure data, which is either your sales or your payroll. You divide that sales payroll figure, though, by 1,000 because it's rated on a per thousand basis. And then that gives you your total rate. And now you know your rate, right? And this is really important to understand because if you're ever, let's say you're in construction and you're doing a lot of work and you're having a really good year and you only gave the insurance company $2 million as a forecast, and that's what your premium based off of, but you're going to do 4. Well, now you can take that rate times the extra 2 million and figure out, okay, this is what I can expect to pay at audit. One other thing that's important to note is, as a contractor specifically, I see a lot of people that like to go on payroll versus sales because it's more stable. And that brings me to my last point, really, is that, you know, all insurance companies have different rates that they behind the scenes would apply to that class code that you don't see, or maybe I don't even see as an agent, right? And this is where it's so important to talk with an independent agent, and they can bring you multiple options on a general liability policy to make sure that you are getting the best deal. Because I have seen prices vary drastically, right? Now, maybe there's a reason, maybe there's a coverage issue, but maybe it's just the rating issue. And you want to make sure you're with a carrier that really knows your class of business, that is comfortable with it, and wants to write it. And that's where you're going to have your most success. Beyond this, there's a lot of other factors that determine your premium, right? And that could be your losses, your geographic location, your industry. There's a lot of factors out there. But go talk with a good agent or call myself. I'd be happy to work with you and share if I believe you're maybe overpaying or if you're not. And if you have any questions on insurance at all and you like the way that this video is, this is how I talk with my clients, right? Very real, very transparent, down to earth. I try to help people understand insurance. Give us a call, shoot me an email, be happy to chat.